Right. Yeah. So it's 12:10, and we are pleased to be invited and to actually share these recommendations that we have at the moment. During the I'll try to make this quick and run through most of the slides so that we could have more time on questions and answers. I'm just looking at the background of most people here, and it's a combination of local government unit as well as from the clinical field. No, so we'll try to see if how we could what do you call this? How we could contextualize the discussion. This is the second time that we are actually running this one. The first one was yesterday when we presented this one to around more than 20 LGUs with over 150 participants, sponsored by the ZFF or Zurich Family Foundation. Right. So we'll see. Medyo mixed, no? But we'll see what we can do now so that we could have more time on the question and answer instead. Okay, right. Again, these recommendations coming from a group of several individuals and institutions, primarily led by the Philippine Society of Public Health Physicians and the Alliance for Improving Health Outcomes, and supported by the Family Medicine. Okay. So to start with, for us to actually develop the whole document or recommendations, we looked at several documents. From the Operation Listo of 2018, the mayors would and LGU operations people would be familiar of that. The Manual of Operations of the Health Emergency and Disaster Response Management of the DOH 2015, certain DILG and DOH memorandum or issuances on running a temporary facility or isolation facilities. We looked at the operational guide from the Philippine Medical Emergency Team or PMAT, the PISMID guidelines, various WHO documents, consensus statements for family and community management of the PAFP and FEAR standards, and some other feedbacks. We would have wanted that somebody from Zamboanga to open the forum or open the discussion to give us an overview of what's happening in Zamboanga Peninsula, because I believe much of the participants here are coming from the area. But let's see. Maybe we could discuss it during the open forum, right? Just also a reminder that this document is non-prescriptive and therefore it's non-restrictive, and it's a living document, and we're constantly updating it based on new evidences, issuances, and feedback. And we're trying to align it. So to start off, what we actually really want to change or actually refocus the narrative about that it's not just the hospital that is at the battlefield at the moment, or it's not the hospital that's your front line. In every emergency and disaster, we've been saying that the hospital actually should be the last line of defense. And with a virus, with a threat that we could not actually see, you have to come together, and every one of us has a role to actually play in this kind of crisis. So everybody is in line at a certain point, a certain line of defense. The first line of defense we're trying to say is that it should start from the individual, the family, and the community. We are also part of the network called the PHCAN, or Public Health Communications Advisory Network, to which we are constantly releasing statements and helping the Department of Health and the whole of community communicate outside. Okay. Right. To start off, just that when we created this recommendations, we have four general objectives. So the first one is actually to provide guidance to the local government units in preparing for a COVID-19 response in order to mitigate the effects on the families, the community, and the health system. We also are proposing that the protocols be streamlined in managing the persons under monitoring, persons under investigations, and confirmed cases of COVID-19. with mild symptoms and no identifiable comorbidities in households and communities, so that we could actually prevent the deluge of patients in the hospital. And also to guide LGUs in establishing a community isolation units, which we want to call Ligtas COVID centers, no? For PUMs, PUIs, and confirmed cases whose living conditions cannot support home quarantine. And of course, to provide a general preventive measures for households and communities. With those general objectives, we are presenting the 4-part recommendation. But for this discussion, which only have so much time, we will focus on part 1, a little of part 2, and part 3. But all of these recommendations is available online, and I will share with you the link later on after this talk. So for the first one, we've been saying that in terms of local preparedness and response strategy, that it differs, no, from LG to LGU. And I think Mayor Torns here would agree na iba ang situation sa bawat lokalidad, no? So you cannot actually be just copying whatever is happening in Metro Manila when your locality is not in the same status, no, or a state. No? So what we are proposing, before that, it's just reiteration that when we actually talk about local government response and preparedness, you're talking about not just the government, but whole of society. No? That for each and every one of us has a role to play. That's what it's saying. And there might be certain specific stakeholders that have a specific task when we actually do the local preparedness and response. No? So your local COVID task forces, the PHERTs, the local health units, special mention on the sanitation inspectors, specific manpower for your community isolation units, patients, families, and of course your community members. Right. So going into the scenarios, what we're saying is that you have to look at each LGU depending on the scenario. No? So there are LGUs that has no known local case of COVID-19. There are those that have a first confirmed case, and those that have documented community transmission. And for each level, there's an alert level, no? Especially in the local government operation listo, preparedness for disasters and emergency. They call it the Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie levels. No? And if you look at here, tinignan lang namin and we aligned it with the DOH declaration that on a Bravo, that's sub-alert level 1, and if it's Charlie, then sub-alert level 2. And for each level, the actions differs. And I'll go through the different levels or alert levels in the actions that we are recommending. So like for example, your LGU has no known local case of COVID-19. So say it's an alert level alpha. And what should the local chief executive or local stakeholders be doing? Definitely activate the local COVID-19 task force using the incident command system. No? Making sure that you have your incident action plan, organize the IMTs or incident management teams by appointing the personal delegation of task. Establish already your test, surveillance, and notification systems. Make sure that you are preparing for the referral system already to your nearest hospitals and testing facilities. Make sure that you have the presence of adequate health human resource. Do a rapid needs assessment. Secure the necessary equipment and supplies that you will need. And conduct trainings and orientations for all, no? Not just your healthcare workers, but other members of the response cluster. And you start identifying your vulnerable high-risk areas and populations. We'll go into that later in the part 2 when we talk about the vulnerable and high-risk population. You need to prepare your community quarantine and community isolation facilities. No? Make sure that you are preparing for social safety nets, a timely, accurate information, monitoring the ingress and egress of people. So this is very important because you don't have your first local case yet. So you want to make sure that you actually are guarding your gates, no? So that the threat will not come in anymore of the virus. No? And of course, secure communications information lines and with other stakeholders, no, inter and intra-agencies, and initiate your regular meetings. The moment that you have your first confirmed case, then you go to alert level Bravo. Then you make sure that your EOC already is activated. Start your social engineering measures by doing the following: no? Physical distancing, prohibition of mass gatherings. You still continue the household profiling and identifying now the specific vulnerable population, the elderly, lifelong conditions, immunocompromised, etc. And of course, establish your platforms for information dissemination by having a COVID-19 hotlines, regular public announcements, and activating your BHERTs to do the contact tracing and monitoring of all susceptible individuals. Also, you have to make sure that you are ready to provide the provisions for basic physiological needs. No? That's food and non-food items. Your social economic safety nets, no, are in place already. No? You prepared it during your alert level alpha, but now you have to start delivering it. No? And identify ways to awaken the Filipino spirit of bayanihan to promote social solidarity. Once a documented community transmission has happened, then you have to implement your enhanced quarantine, community quarantine. Your BHERTs now will transition to active case finding and monitoring and reporting, okay? And establish your context-sensitive community quarantine measures. Following. Again, we want to emphasize the innovative ways of delivery of basic services because each LGU would have its limitation and would have its own different kind of skill sets. You cannot be actually saying na, oh, itong ginawa sa isang LGU, dapat exactly the same thing ang gagawin din in another LGU. Because we also recognize the limitations and also the differences in context of those LGUs. Now, at this stage, you also need to operationalize your task COVID facilities and referral systems for admissions and testing of PUIs. Also, at this point, you need to coordinate the culture-sensitive management of the debt because there will be that. And right now, it's one of the issues and problems that is happening in Metro Manila. Of course, don't forget the other social support groups, no, community support groups, no, so that the psychosocial activities or concerns of our population is addressed. Very important that you do your daily situation reports so that it will actually inform the decision making of the local task force group on what to do. The same thing for your daily command conferences. And based on those conferences and new information, then you should update and amend your incident action plan as needed. So more or less, that's the three levels of actions that we are recommending for LGUs to look at. No? Again, this is not prescriptive, but this is a guide that we're saying to see whether the LGU, these are reasonable. No? And we think with most of the feedback that we have, ito yung more or less that more feasible to the LGUs, no? Contextualizing it. This slide just shows you a sample of the exact specific activities, nitty-gritty. No? Hindi ko na iisa-isa yan. But in terms of how you actually pre-plan and prepare for your local COVID task force group first meeting. So we will share these slides naman to you. Right. Having talked about what stage your LGU or your community is in, then the next question is, how do you actually now identify the cases in your community? And what do you actually do when you find these cases? No? So who goes where? Quickly lang, these are your current definitions. No? And dalawang level to in terms of your person under monitoring. No? In an LGU without sustained community level transmission, the PUM is defined as any person with history of travel from a country or area where there is a sustained community level of transmission. Example, case in point. See. Mayor Torn, sa area nyo ba meron na? May case na ba?
Wala pa po,
Wala
Doc.
pa. Okay. So ang PUM natin dito sa inyo is that anybody who is traveling to your LGU coming from Manila. No?
Yes, coming from Manila, coming from Zamboanga City, coming from Cagayan de Oro, those are considered PUM po. Automatic po yun.
Automatic. And we want them to be, recommendation natin sa kanila to be home quarantined for 14 days upon arrival.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Doc. Actually, dito sa amin, Doc, yung ano po, yung lalo na pag Cagayan de Oro, yung bago lang na confirmed COVID areas, automatic po may designated quarantine area po kami.
Okay,
Ididiretso po namin doon. Oo. Hindi na po kami mag-home quarantine para sigurado. Okay po.
It's a great mayor. Let's discuss more in the great paper. But for the other LGUs na merong sustained community level transmission already, a PUM is defined as someone who has a known exposure. So like for example, in Metro Manila or possibly in Zamboanga, it's somebody na alam natin na exposed to somebody na providing care to a PUI or confirmed case. No? For example, ako po, actually, kakatapos ko lang ng quarantine ko kasi ako po ay tumingin ng isang pasyente na naging COVID positive at namatay. Wala po akong sintomas, so technically I'm person under monitoring, but I still needed to do a self-quarantine. Okay. And also direct contact with PUI and confirmed case, no? Also a face-to-face contact with the PUI or confirmed case within 1 meter and for more than 15 minutes. So ito yung PUM definition for those community level na may community level. Okay. PUI is defined as somebody na may known exposure, a PUM, pero nagmanifest na ng symptoms, no? Ng acute respiratory infection. Whether may fever man o wala. Okay? So ano yung mga sintomas na yan? Cough, cold, sore throat, body malaise, fatigue. No? At kasama yung ating tatawag na SARI at ILI. Ngayon, sino nga ba ang tanong natin, sino ang kailangan ilagay sa isang COVID or COVID center, no? Ligtas COVID center, no? Or quarantine or isolation area. No? Ito po yung tatlo. Sabi natin, a PUM na hindi kayang mag-self-isolate sa bahay. No? At walang a PUI na may mild symptoms at hindi rin kayang mag-self-isolate sa bahay. No? Pero PUI with mild symptoms na walang comorbidity at hindi greater than 60 years old. Okay? And also a confirmed case na may mild symptoms na wala ring comorbidity at hindi rin more than 60 years old. Kasi gusto natin, ito yung mga tao actually na kaya nilang alagaan pa yung sarili nila. Hindi kailangan ma-hospital. No? But you want to isolate them para hindi na magkaroon ng possibility for them to spread the virus to other people. Okay? Sige. Ngayon, dito pinag-usapan natin yung tungkol sa self-isolating sa house, no? O home quarantine. Ang definition lang natin ng home quarantine ay yung kailangan lahat ng miyembro ng household hindi lalabas for 14 days. Okay? So, pag hindi kaya, pero at ang self-isolation ay yung isang taong yon ay kayang mo ilagay sa isang separate na room or yung area sa bahay, no, for the whole duration of the 14 days. Pag hindi kaya yon, then we are recommending that that person be moved to a community-based facility. Okay? Again, so ito pong dalawang box dito is basically just to explain the purpose of admission in an isolation unit. For PUM, it's for monitoring of development of symptoms. And for PUI, for symptomatic treatment of symptoms while at waiting test and or pagbabantay rin na hindi sila mag-deteriorate. Okay? Paano natin malalaman kung ang isang bahay ay kaya mag-self-isolate, no? Or you can do a home quarantine? Ito po yung mga listahan namin sinasuggest or recommend. No? So, should be that the household is not living with a vulnerable population unless may separate house, kwarto siya at banyo. Separate bedroom or separate bed with enough distance of more than 1 meter or 3 feet. Accessible bathroom, no? Well ventilated, separate utensils and personal things. Facilities for hand washing with separate towels. No? Pag hindi ito kaya po, then that person should be put into or should be admitted in a community-based facility or ligtas COVID facility. Okay? Right. So sa community, ito po yung ina-advise namin na gawin, no? Para pag community level transmission po na, that you be here to do your active case finding, no? By setting up a hotline and so on and so forth. Right. Okay. So pinag-usapan ho natin kung anong dapat paghandaan ng LGU, sino-sino po dapat ang i-isolate natin or i-quarantine, whether sa house o sa isang facility. Ngayon, pag-usapan ho natin, ano nga ba ang mga requirements for you to be able to set up a ligtas COVID or what we're recommending to be called local isolation and general treatment areas for COVID-19 cases. All right. So, or ligtas COVID. By using the word ligtas COVID facility, we are actually doing a positive messaging, no? Kasi meron ho kami narinig na sa ibang mga munisipyo, ibang mga komunidad, natakot ang mga tao na ilagay sa isang quarantine facility. Kasi sinasabi nila, baka pag kinuha sila, hindi na sila makauwi, no? At mamatay sila. Similar to actually what happened to the Ebola case in Africa, no? So we try to make the messaging positive note, no? Kaya ligtas COVID ang we're recommending to use. So ano ang ligtas COVID facility, no? It's a community managed facility unit within the municipality, within the barangay, city or province. It's up to you, no? Wherein yung kaninang binanggit natin ay pwedeng i-isolate to. On the minimum, there are 4 areas na kailangan meron ang ligtas COVID. No? It provides for basic room and board, a case management limited to symptomatic treatment, monitoring and prompt referral at the first sign of clinical deterioration, and discharge instructions for continued home care and follow-up. Now, to get into the details, meron pong 4 na areas pwede tayong tignan. For the 4S framework na ginagamit actually from Health Emergency Management Bureau, no? Space, staff, supplies, and special services. For the space requirement po, no? Ang nire-recommend namin ay it could be a permanent or temporary structure, no? Ideally enclosed structures, no? Na meron ng separate rooms. But of course, with the limitations in the different LGUs, we can innovate, no? As long as it is well ventilated, no? And that we are not combining the confirmed cases from the PUMs and PUI. Okay? And you can actually just cohort or put in one area all of those that are confirmed cases. Ito po yung mga listahan ng mga we are recommending na kailangan meron po dun sa ligtas COVID facility. Hindi ko na po isa-isa. Ito po ay ginawa po sa tulong ng Palafox architects, no? Na if you are going to convert an auditorium, an enclosed facility, no? In your municipality or in your barangay or in your city, no? Provinces, no? Ito. So kung titingnan ho natin, no? Kung ito yung buong area mo, then you could just place different beds in the middle, no? Sorry. I think I have a better picture. No? Parang ganyan siya, no? Kung 3D, no? At ito yung may kulay, no? So that you can place them at yung in between po, pwede ho kasing itong temporary lang, yung isang structure mo to. Hindi mo kailangan ito ay fixed, no? So pwedeng plywood or whatever, and then you do the curtains in between. So you have a treatment zone, you You have the administrative zone, may patient egress ka, may public visitors area ka, no? And then your sanitation and areas for toilets. Okay. Right. Ito po ay picture from the Quezon City po, no, yung Hope facility nila, no. Ginawa. Alright. Of course, there are SOPs for now what you're gonna do inside the facility. In terms of staffing po, here are the followings that we are recommending. No? At least you need to have a local a COVID facility manager. So yung overall in charge of the facility. No? And coordinating with the human resources and facility from outside. And ito siya rin ang nag-coordinate with the bigger BHERTS officials and your local COVID task force. No? It doesn't have to be a healthcare workers. No? Of course, you need to have a dedicated sanitation officer inside to make sure that the infectious waste management of the facility is well followed. Healthcare workers could be midwives and PHWs, no? And we are suggesting just a ratio of 1 per 20 patients. No? Kasi again, your patients here should be able to do self-monitoring. No? And they would be given a self-monitoring sheet to which the health worker would be able to monitor on a daily basis. No? So daily monitoring and the presence of symptoms, looking at the presence of symptoms of the patients. A physician, we're also suggesting to have a physician, but that's not necessarily be the CHO or MHO, but it could also be a physician volunteer, no? Na pwede rin mag-teleconsult na lang. Hindi kailangan nandun siya 24/7. No? Pero on-call dapat siya 24/7, but not physically. No? And that's the one who approves admission, referral, and discharge of patients. And of course, you need your support staff. Again, these are minimum standard that we are recommending. If you have more resources, then why not? So, important reminder lang dito that if your healthcare worker becomes symptomatic, then kailangan niya mag-self-report agad and i-follow niya na yung PUI algorithm. Supplies and resources, hindi ko na po isa-isahin to, but just to say that more or less meron mga suggested requirements for the facility. No? And then a checklist for your sample PPEs. In terms of your special services, you have to think about the following. No? Visitation of patients. No? Ilagay natin yung sa picture na merong area. Because halimbawa may gusto magdala ng pagkain or bisitahin lang for psychosocial measure, no? Okay lang yon as long as you have an area dedicated to them and that there is a physical barrier in between. Of course, you make sure that you have your linkage for your psychosocial, emotional, spiritual support. And then think about the laundry and the food for the facility. The rest of the presentation deals with the following SOPs. No? Hindi ko na rin isa-isahin. I'll probably actually stop here. No? But to say that these are other SOPs that you have to make sure that you have, no? in running your COVID ligtas facility.